Good morning, afternoon, or evening. This is the first episode of the Nothing Good After Midnight podcast. I'm your host, Poppet, and today we're going to talk about 3 a.m. rituals or games, or whatever you want to call them. So, I've had a fascination with these things for a few years now. I wholly believe in the paranormal. I think there's weird things out there that just can't be explained by natural things. But these games, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about them. So I wanted to start this podcast kind of as a dialogue about them. So I'll talk about them a little bit, maybe give you the setup and what you need to do them. I don't recommend doing them because you never know. And then to throw my own little creative flair in there, will have a short story that I've written based around each game at the end of each episode. So, with that said, today we are going to talk about the Three Kings game, ritual, whatever you want to call it. I first heard about this game ritual thing when I was watching Sam Goldbach on YouTube. He does he used to do a lot of these 3 a.m. games back when he did more paranormal. Well, I think he still does some paranormal stuff, but not so much in his house anymore, I don't think. And it was something that was really interesting to me because, a lot of times these games have you moving from place to place, like hiding from something, whereas with this one, you're sat in one spot and you're not supposed to move, and it was just weird to me. I was like, that's even a little bit scarier to me, because then for me, if I hear something like a noise in my house at night, I will go and check it out. Don't get me wrong, I'll pick up our super heavy mag flashlight and go check it out so I have something to hit anybody with if they broke into my house or something, but it's just weird to me to think that you have to sit there in a dark room with only this little candle for light. Ooh, creepy. But anyway, my current thoughts about that aside, let's get into the nitty-gritty of it, like what you need, how it starts, and all this setup stuff. So let's get right into that list of supplies that you're going to need for this ritual, game, whatever you call it. I suggest going into it with a mentality that something could happen, so don't go into it with the mentality of it being a game. Anyway, what you're going to need: a very large, empty, and quiet room, preferably without windows. If windows exist, you need to be able to cover them and ensure total darkness. Basements usually work well if they're roomy enough. No thank you, basements are creepy. A pack of candles, you'll only need one if all goes well, and a lighter. A bucket of water and a mug, a fan, 2 large mirrors, like the one on your dresser. Don't worry, they won't get harmed. Or if they do, it'd be the least of your concerns. 3 chairs, an alarm clock, an active cell phone. Don't forget to charge the goddamn battery. A loved one willing to follow rules and go along with these shenanigans. A small toy or dear object from your childhood. Whew, that's an interesting list of supplies you need. Alright, let's get into the setup of this thing. Start setup at around 11 p.m. Place 1 chair in the center of the room facing north. This is important. Place the other 2 chairs exactly to the left and right facing your throne. The distance between your throne and that of your queen and fool should be about the length of your arm to each side, more or less. Place the 2 mirrors on the queen and fool chairs left and right of you, facing you and each other. Try your best to have them stand at a 90-degree angle, or else you may get more or less than 3 kings. If you sit on your throne facing straight ahead, north, You should be able to perceive your own reflection in each of the two mirrors without actually having to turn your head nor your eyes to do so. If you see your own reflection in the corner of your eye just barely there, then you've done it right. Now, let's pause for a moment in this setup. If you're like me and you believe in the paranormal, and you believe in things that bring paranormal things into this world, two mirrors facing each other becomes a portal. It lets things in, it makes you more vulnerable, so be careful. Again, this goes with what I said earlier. Don't go into this with the mentality that it's just a game. Whether these actually work or not, it's better safe than sorry. Alright, continuing with the setup. Place the bucket of water and the mug in front of you, just barely out of reach. Place the fan behind you. Turn it on. Don't set it to the maximum power. Medium or low is usually enough. Leave it on. Turn off the lights, leave the door open, and go to your bedroom. Set the candles by the side of your bed next to a lighter, your alarm clock, and your cell phone. Leave it charging. Set your alarm clock for 3:30 a.m. Turn off the lights and sleep while holding your power object. Get some rest. Okay, so what can you expect? Well, there's no telling really. But this is what you do when the time comes. When your alarm clock goes off at 3 a.m., you wake up when your alarm goes off. Turn it off, but do not turn on the lights. You have 3 minutes to light your candle, grab your cell phone, and get to the room and sit on your throne. You should be seated by 3:33. Don't forget your power object. Check for potential red flags. If your cell phone didn't charge, if the door's closed, if the fan's off, abort mission. Don't go through with it. Side note, if you have to abort mission due to any of those reasons, leave the house with your loved one. Go to a hotel or something. There's no need to run. You have time to grab a jacket and your keys and whatnot, but leave. After 6 a.m., the coast should be clear. Your house should be fine. If all goes as planned, you proceed and sit on your throne. Do not look directly at either of the two mirrors beside you. Don't let the candle go out. The fan is behind you for a reason. If your body is moved in some way, it should blow the candle out. It's a kind of like a safeguard, if you will. Look straight ahead at the darkness, not at the candle, not at the mirrors, just straight ahead. Now you're not going to know which mirror has the queen and which one has the fool. That is for you to figure out. I've heard it said that you ask questions and their responses, which is crazy to me that you might be hearing these responses. Like, that's terrifying in and of itself. But the responses should kind of gear you or guide you towards which one is which, the fool or the queen. I won't tell you what happens if things go wrong, because I don't know. I don't even know if this thing works. Again, as I've said maybe like 4 times already. But why not just give it a try? Have a little faith and jump right in. Now it's time for some spooky short story. A very large, empty, and quiet room. Cover windows. A pack of candles and a lighter. A bucket of water. A mug. A fan. 2 large mirrors. 3 chairs. An alarm clock. An active cell phone. A small toy or object from your childhood. A loved one. Place 1 chair in the center of the room, facing north. Place the other 2 chairs exactly to the left and right, facing your throne. The distance between your throne and that of the queen and fool should be about the length of your arm to each side. Place the 2 large mirrors on the queen and fool chairs, left and right of you, facing you and each other. Try your best to have them stand at 90-degree angle. When you sit on your throne, facing straight ahead, you should be able to perceive your own reflection in each of the two mirrors. If you see your own reflection in the corner of your eye, just barely there, then you've done it right. Thera groaned as the piercing beeps of her alarm clock roused her from sleep. Gazing at the digital red numbers, she kicked her blanket off and plucked the thick, black candle from her bedside table. As she slid on her slippers, her hand fished around absently in the drawer until her fingers closed around the small, green lighter. She held her breath as she slowly nudged her door open and shuffled down the hall to the room at the end. Her fingers froze as they reached for the handle. Was it really right to do one of these stupid paranormal games in the room that had once belonged to her older sister? Pushing the morality of this whole thing aside, she opened the door and stepped in. For a moment, it seemed the only sound in the house was the hum of the desk fan that she had left on. Thera padded over to her throne, blocking the fan from blowing the candle out as she did. Checking her phone one last time, she seated herself in the plush red high-backed chair as the time on her phone switched over to 3:33. Thera inhaled deeply, staring straight ahead into the darkness in front of her. It was only then that Thera realized her mistake. She'd left the door open after setting up for this, but had been closed only moments ago before she entered. Her hands started to shake as she fought the urge to turn towards the whispers. Ask us. We won't lie. Thera cleared her throat. Am I pretty? The most beautiful. Am I smart? Hardly. How trivial questions. Thera knew what questions they wanted her to ask, for those exact questions nagged at her, ate away at her sanity day after day. Does Dad hate me? More than anything. Her fingers tightened around the candle, ignoring it as molten wax slowly rolled down them. What was it my fault?
Was what your fault?
The accident.
Which accident?
Every muscle in Thera's body tensed up as she caught the glimpse out of the corner of her eyes that both reflections were now facing her. How is that possible? This can't be possible! She debated for a minute, wanting to put a stop to this, but she knew she couldn't. She opened this can of worms, and now she had to play it until the end. Was Deanna's accident my fault?
She had to hurry, so
all that royal
you were selfish that
everything.
night.
Thera choked back a cry. They were right. It had been her fault. If she hadn't tried to end it all, Deanna wouldn't have run that red light, trying to get to her in time. She would be alive today.
It can make your pain stop.
Her nails dug into the softening wax of the candle. More time had passed than she'd realized. Something wasn't right. Raynor hadn't called her or come to throw water on her. The wax where she gripped the candle was far enough down that it would only start to soften after 3 hours or more. I can make her put an end to this. You know how fools love their games. Not as much as backstabbing queens, of course. Just look at me, my king. I never do anything to hurt you. Thera trembled as her head began to turn as if someone was moving it for her. Her eyes widened at the sight before her. A gnarled, twisted visage with skin of bark, a crown of bones, and eyes that shone like embers. Her mouth stretched into a toothy grin. Raynor yawned as he glanced at the time. 4:34. He sleepily put his phone to his ear as he called Thera, straight to voicemail. Groaning, he stumbled down the hall and knocked on the door. Thera? No answer. He tried the handle. Locked. Bracing himself, he slammed his whole weight against the door and it immediately gave way. He froze. The mirrors were completely shattered and Thera was gone. Light flickering off the floor coaxed him closer to the chair. The candle had been placed in the center, still lit. Beside it, the picture of Thera and Deanna as children that Thera had decided would be her item of power. And on the floor, shards of the broken mirrors had been placed into the shape of a crown.